The night sky was silent, except for the soft rustle of leaves in the forest. Rowan Hale crouched on the edge of his treehouse, listening to the wind whisper through the branches. He had lived alone in this high wooden home for as long as he could remember, ever since his parents had died on a distant world. The stars above were bright, but something felt wrong. Something was coming. Suddenly, a streak of light tore across the sky, brighter than any falling star. Rowan's eyes widened as he watched a huge object plummet toward the forest below. It crashed into the trees with a deafening roar, shaking the ground beneath him. Dust and sparks rose into the air, and for a moment, the night seemed alive with fire. Rowan froze, his small body pressed against the rough wood of his treehouse. He had heard stories of dragons before. Old tales told by travelers that came to his parents' colony when he was very small. Dragons were massive, dangerous creatures that could burn cities with fire and crush armies with their claws. They were not real, of course, or so he had thought. But now Rowan felt a shiver crawl down his spine. Something alive had fallen from the sky, something enormous and wounded. Rowan climbed down his treehouse ladder quietly, careful not to make a sound. The forest was dark, but he could see smoke rising through the trees. His heart pounded in his chest, but curiosity pushed him forward. As he moved closer, he could hear a low, painful groan. It was deep, almost like the rumble of thunder, but softer, almost human. Then he saw it. A massive shape lay tangled among the broken trees. Scales glinted in the firelight, black and silver, with jagged cracks across them. Its wings were folded and bent at odd angles, and its tail had crushed several small saplings. One golden eye opened slowly, and it looked at him with a mix of pain and suspicion. Rowan froze. He had never seen anything so enormous, so alive, and yet so broken. The dragon tried to move, and a sharp sound of cracked bone echoed through the forest. Rowan swallowed hard. Most humans would run. Most humans would scream. But he did not. Something inside him, something small but strong, told him to stay. Rowan stepped forward slowly. I'm not going to hurt you, he said, his voice trembling. The dragon's eye narrowed, smoke curling from its nostrils, but it made no move to attack. Rowan could feel its hot breath, smell the iron of blood and fire. He reached into his small backpack and pulled out a water container. He crept closer and poured it onto the dragon's cracked scales, letting the water drip down its body. The dragon flinched at first, then closed its eye. Rowan saw a shallow cut along its wing, oozing dark liquid. He knew he could not heal it completely. He did not have medicine strong enough, and the wound looked ancient and deep. But he could help even a little. He ripped a strip of cloth from his shirt and pressed it gently against the gash. The dragon hissed but did not move away. Rowan's hands shook, but he did not stop. Minutes passed like hours. Rowan kept talking to the dragon in a low, calm voice. It's okay. You're safe. You're not alone. He told the dragon about small things. The birds that nested near his treehouse, the stars he liked to watch, the stories his parents had told him. He talked as if he could teach the dragon something, but really he was teaching himself courage. The dragon Valrix did not understand words the way humans did. But it understood attention, care, and presence. It had been used as a weapon for centuries, trained to follow commands, trained to destroy. No human had ever touched it without fear. But this one did not run. This one did not scream. This one simply stayed. Slowly Valrix shifted. Its tail moved slightly, crushing a fallen branch. Its wing twitched. It had been ready to lash out, ready to burn anything that approached. But something strange happened, something new. The dragon did not attack. It watched Rowan with those golden eyes, alert but not hostile. Rowan's small hands and warm voice created a strange kind of peace in the middle of chaos. Hours passed. The fire from the crash died down. Smoke drifted lazily among the trees, and the forest began to feel calm again. Rowan built a small barrier of fallen branches around the dragon, just to keep it safe from wandering animals. He whispered, "Sleep. You need to rest." The dragon lowered its massive head onto the ground, eye half closed. Rowan could feel its slow, painful breathing. He did not leave. He stayed beside it until his own eyes grew heavy with sleep. In the silence of the forest, a strange thought formed in Rowan's mind. Maybe you are not a monster. Maybe you are just hurt. And for the first time, Valrix did not feel like a weapon or a tool. He felt seen. By the time dawn broke, a soft golden light spilled through the trees. Rowan looked at the dragon's scales glinting in the morning sun. Valrix's wounds were still deep, but his breathing was steady. He had survived the night. And Rowan had survived it too. Somehow, the two of them, so different and yet so connected, had found each other in the darkness. The galaxy outside did not know it yet, but everything had already begun to change. A human had chosen courage over fear. A dragon had chosen trust over instinct. And in a small treehouse in a quiet forest, a bond that could alter worlds had quietly taken root. Rowan sat back on the ground, exhausted, but his heart was full. He whispered almost to himself, "We will get through this. Together." And Veilrix's golden eye opened fully, looking at him not with hunger, not with anger, but with a spark of something new, hope. Rowan woke to the soft sound of leaves moving in the morning breeze. Sunlight spilled across his treehouse, highlighting the scratches and dents left from the dragon's crash. Veilrix lay beneath the branches, breathing slowly, his huge golden eyes half closed. Rowan's small hands itched to help him more, to fix him the way he would fix a broken toy, but this was no toy. The dragon was alive, immense, and far older than anything Rowan could understand. Rowan moved quietly, careful not to startle him. He climbed down the ladder with a basket of supplies. He had scavenged what he could from nearby ruins and old human outposts: scraps of metal, clean water, dried fruit, and pieces of cloth. Each item felt small against the size of Veilrix, but Rowan knew that small things could matter. He placed the supplies near the dragon. "You need to eat," he said softly. "Even a little. It will help." Veilrix sniffed the food, his nostrils flaring. The dragon hesitated, then took a cautious bite of the fruit Rowan offered. It was slow at first, unsure. Rowan watched every movement, amazed at how careful Veilrix was, as if the world itself had taught him to fear even kindness. Rowan spent the day repairing the treehouse. He patched the roof with metal scraps and reinforced the ladder. The old home had been built years ago by his parents, and no one had visited since. It seemed impossible that such a simple, fragile structure could still stand among giant trees, let alone hide a dragon. But it did. Rowan smiled to himself. Somehow, his little home was enough. Veilrix did not move much during the repairs. He watched Rowan with quiet curiosity, the golden eye following each careful motion. He remembered the last time someone had tried to care for him, it had ended in fire and pain. But Rowan did not strike, did not shout, did not even run when the dragon twitched its tail too close. He stayed. He helped. When the sun dipped low, Rowan climbed back down and whispered to the dragon, "I know the galaxy will come looking for you. But we will stay hidden. You are safe here." Veilrix tilted his massive head, understanding perhaps the word safe, if not all the rest. He lowered himself closer to the treehouse, the closest he could be without touching it completely. Rowan noticed the dragon's scales had a faint sheen in the dim light, as if even the smallest warmth from the treehouse soothed him. That night, Rowan lit a small fire in a makeshift metal stove he had built near the base of the treehouse. The light flickered, casting dancing shadows across Veilrix's huge form. The dragon stayed still, listening to the crackle of the flames. Rowan sat on a branch, dangling his legs, and told Veilrix about simple human things. The taste of fresh fruit, the sound of wind through metal roofs, the way clouds could change shape quickly, almost like a story told by the sky. Veilrix had known empires, battles, and fear, but never warmth like this. Never quiet. Never a human who did not command or fear him. He felt something strange. A small, unfamiliar feeling that humans called comfort. It was dangerous, he knew. Comfort made dragons soft, vulnerable. And yet he did not pull away. Days passed. Rowan fed him, cleaned his wounds, and even fashioned a small bed of soft cloth and branches for Veilrix beneath the treehouse. The dragon tried to stand, only to collapse again. But Rowan's hands were steady, his determination quiet but unwavering. He spoke little, but each word carried a strength that surprised even himself. One afternoon, Rowan found a broken communication device from his parents' old equipment. He tried to fix it, thinking maybe he could send a signal far away, not for help but just to see if anyone out there remembered humans. Veilrix watched him curiously. The dragon had spent centuries obeying commands, following signals, obeying wars he did not fully understand. But this human, this small, fragile human, was not sending commands. He was learning, experimenting, discovering. And Veilrix began to understand something new. Humans were dangerous not because of strength but because of their ideas. At night, the forest was quiet again. But Rowan did not feel alone, and Veilrix no longer seemed like a weapon waiting for the end. A strange partnership was forming. The dragon would defend this treehouse if needed, and the human would care for the dragon in ways no empire could. Together they had built a small world that should not exist. But danger lingered beyond the trees. Scouts from the galaxy's armies had detected unusual energy readings near the crash site. They assumed a dragon had survived, and that meant humans could be hiding it. Rowan did not know exactly what would happen if they came. He only knew that he would not leave Veilrix no matter the threat. Courage did not always roar. Sometimes it whispered in the night while two beings shared warmth. Veilrix shifted slightly and lowered his massive head. Rowan reached out and touched the dragon's nose gently. It was warm, alive, and not a threat. The dragon exhaled slowly, letting the heat brush against the boy's hand. Rowan smiled. "We will be okay," he whispered. He did not know if it was true, but he believed it. For the first time in centuries, Veilrix had a place to rest. A home that was fragile, wooden, and utterly human, but safe. And for the first time in his long life, the dragon felt a quiet hope. A hope that perhaps he did not have to fight the galaxy alone. That perhaps he could learn trust. That perhaps a small human could change him in ways no army, no empire, no command ever could. The forest outside seemed to understand this strange peace. Leaves rustled softly. A faint breeze carried the scent of flowers and earth. Stars appeared above, blinking carefully, like they too were watching the new friendship bloom. Rowan climbed into his bed of blankets in the treehouse, listening to Veilrix's slow breathing beneath him. He felt warmth spread through his chest. He was not alone. And Veilrix, the broken dragon who had fallen from the sky, felt something even more astonishing. He was no longer just a weapon, no longer just a monster. He had a purpose that was his own. To protect the boy, to stay, to feel warmth without fear. And in this small, improbable treehouse, the impossible had already begun. The quiet of the forest did not last long. One evening, as the sun began to sink behind the hills, Rowan noticed a strange hum in the sky. At first he thought it was the wind. But the hum grew louder, mechanical, steady, and impossible to ignore. He climbed to the edge of the treehouse and peered through the branches. Above him, tiny lights blinked in patterns he had never seen. Ships, dozens of them, hovered silently above the forest. Their hulls reflected the fading sunlight like cold, dark mirrors. Rowan's heart raced. These were not travelers, not scouts like the ones he had heard stories of. These were soldiers, and they were looking for something. Veilrix shifted beneath the treehouse, sensing the tension in the air. The dragon's wings twitched and smoke drifted from his nostrils. Rowan's small hand rested on Veilrix's nose. "Don't worry," he whispered. "We can handle this." But even to himself he did not sound convinced. The ships began scanning the forest with beams of light. Each beam made the leaves shimmer unnaturally, and the animals scurried away in panic. Rowan ducked down, holding his breath. He had no weapon. No plan. Only Veilrix and the fragile safety of his treehouse. Veilrix let out a low rumble. It was not a roar of attack, but a warning. Rowan felt it vibrate through the wood beneath him. The dragon's body was tense, ready to act, and yet he waited. It was as if he understood Rowan's plan before the boy even had one. Rowan climbed down the ladder slowly. He stepped into the shadows, trying to make himself small. One of the alien ships descended closer. A hatch opened and cold light spilled into the forest. From it emerged a group of figures in dark armor, moving silently among the trees. Rowan's stomach twisted, but he did not run. He could not. He would not leave Veilrix alone. The soldiers stopped near the base of the treehouse. Their scanners flicked and beeped, searching. Rowan stepped forward, his small frame trembling. "Stop!" he shouted, his voice breaking the silence. "This dragon is not dangerous. He is not a weapon. He is my friend." The soldiers paused. A small voice, human and fragile, standing alone, speaking against their orders. One of them tilted its head, confused. No human had ever done this before. Humans were supposed to hide, to flee, to obey. But this one challenged them. Rowan's courage, tiny and unarmed, shone brighter than their weapons. Veilrix moved slowly, lifting his head. The dragon was massive, but he did not attack. He simply looked at the invaders, his golden eyes steady, alert, and calm. Smoke drifted lazily from his nostrils, not as a threat, but as a warning. The soldiers expected a fight. They had trained for centuries to face dragons that burned and destroyed. But Veilrix did nothing, he waited. Rowan took another step forward. "He has never hurt anyone. You don't understand. You think he is a monster, but he is not. He is hurt. He is scared. And he is my friend." His voice grew stronger with each word. He did not flinch as a soldier raised a scanner toward him. He did not scream. He only stood and spoke, small but unyielding. Veilrix shifted his massive wings, a sound that made the ground tremble. But instead of spreading fire or claws, he lowered his head to the ground, almost bowing slightly. He was protecting Rowan, not attacking. The soldiers froze. They had never seen a dragon do this. They had never seen a human inspire such trust. One soldier stepped forward cautiously, scanning the dragon. It is obeying him, the soldier muttered. Another shook its head. Impossible. Humans cannot control dragons. But Veilrix was not being controlled. He was choosing. Choosing to protect. Choosing trust. Choosing warmth over instinct. Rowan's heart pounded. He is not a weapon. He is not yours to take. He is alive and he is my friend. You cannot hurt him. His voice carried across the clearing, small but fierce. Even the forest seemed to pause. Birds stopped in mid-flight. The wind stilled. The world held its breath. Veilrix slowly lifted his head, letting his eye meet Rowan's. There was a connection there, something deep and unspoken. The dragon understood, in a way only a being who had lived centuries could, that this human had courage, yes, but also something rarer. Hope. Rowan believed in Veilrix when no one else would. Rowan believed in life when everyone expected death. The soldiers looked at each other, uncertain. They had orders, yes. Destroy the dragon. Remove witnesses. But the child in front of them, so small, so brave, so human, defied all their logic. Their scanners, their weapons, their centuries of experience suddenly felt hollow. Veilrix exhaled, a long, slow puff of warm air. The sound was almost a sigh. The dragon's presence was immense, but calm. He did not roar. He did not attack. He only stood as Rowan's protector. And for the first time, the soldiers realized they were witnessing something impossible. One by one, the alien soldiers began to step back, lowering their weapons slightly. The galaxy's rules, the codes of fear, the belief that dragons were unstoppable weapons, all of it crumbled under the quiet courage of a human child and the choice of a dragon. Rowan's voice softened, almost a whisper now. You don't have to fight. You can leave. He doesn't want to hurt you. And I will not leave him. He held his hand out toward Veilrix. The dragon leaned slightly closer, as if understanding that he had a choice too. The forest remained still, watching. The ships above hovered, hesitant. And the galaxy at that moment learned something new. Humans were not weak. They were not fragile. They were courageous. And when they chose to stand, even the mightiest creatures would hesitate. Veilrix lowered himself slightly, resting one claw near Rowan's feet. The soldiers finally stepped back, uncertain but unwilling to engage. Rowan exhaled, relief flooding him. He had faced the galaxy and not run. And Veilrix, broken, wounded, feared, had chosen him. The night fell completely, and the stars blinked above, watching silently. The forest was quiet again, but something had changed. Rowan and Veilrix had survived the first test, proving that courage, trust, and kindness could stand against fear and power. And though the galaxy would not forget, and though danger would return, the bond between the human and the dragon had grown stronger than any weapon could ever be. Rowan climbed back into his treehouse, placing a hand on Veilrix's warm nose. We did it, he whispered. We stayed. Together. The dragon exhaled slowly as if in agreement, and settled back among the branches. The forest seemed to sigh. And far above, in the black sky, the galaxy's ships hovered silently, reconsidering everything they thought they knew about humans, dragons, and the impossible courage that could change worlds. The forest was quiet the next morning, but Rowan could feel the tension in the air. The alien ships had not returned yet, but he knew they would. He could see the faint traces of their scanners in the dirt and broken leaves around the treehouse. Veilrix lay nearby, wounded but calm. His golden eyes followed Rowan wherever he went, alert and watchful. Rowan prepared food and water, speaking softly as he worked. You need strength today, he said. I think they will come back soon. But you don't have to fight unless you want to. We'll face them together. Veilrix made a low rumble in response, as if he understood. He had been trained for centuries to burn, to attack, to destroy, but something inside him was changing. Something that felt dangerous but good, restraint. The first ship appeared at sunset, sliding silently through the treetops. It hovered above the treehouse, scanning with bright blue lights. Rowan's heart raced, but he did not run. He stood tall on the branch, small and fragile, but unafraid. Veilrix shifted slightly beneath him, making the wood tremble. The dragon's massive wings were folded, but his claws dug into the ground, ready if needed. A hatch opened and soldiers stepped out. Their armor gleamed in the last light of the day. They moved toward the treehouse with weapons ready, expecting fire, expecting chaos. Rowan raised his hand. Stop. You are wrong about him. He will not fight you. He does not want to burn anyone. The soldiers froze, surprised by the child's voice. One of them hesitated. It is just a human, he whispered. Why does he not fear the dragon? Another soldier shook his head. Humans are weak. They cannot stand alone. But this human was standing alone. And the dragon at his side, so enormous and terrifying, did not move to attack. Veilrix lifted his head. He exhaled slowly and smoke curled from his nostrils. It was not fire, not a weapon. It was a warning. His golden eye met Rowan's, then slowly turned toward the soldiers. The dragon had the power to destroy them all, but he chose not to. He would not burn. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Their scanners beeped warnings. This dragon, enormous and deadly, was behaving in a way they had never seen. They expected destruction. They expected fear. But Veilrix had learned something new from Rowan: trust. He would not attack. He would not obey their commands blindly. He would protect the human who had shown him warmth. Rowan stepped forward, his small voice rising. You see him. He is not a weapon. He is not your enemy. He is hurt, scared, and alive. If you attack, it will not be him who loses, it will be you. The words seemed to hang in the air. Veilrix shifted slightly, spreading his massive wings a little to block the soldier's path. The movement was not aggressive, but protective. His golden eye glowed in the fading light, steady and powerful. The soldiers hesitated, unsure of how to act. They had trained for centuries, yet here was a dragon refusing to fight, a human refusing to flee, and a choice they had not considered. Veilrix spoke in a low, rumbling voice, deep and resonant. The words were not loud, but they carried. I have lived for centuries as a weapon. I have burned cities, followed orders, destroyed what I was told to destroy. I am no longer your tool. I am no longer yours to command. And I will not burn. The soldiers froze. They had never heard a dragon speak like this. A dragon that could destroy entire armies, refusing to do so. Refusing to obey fear. Refusing to be what they expected. Rowan's eyes widened. He had never heard Veilrix speak with such strength before. It was not anger. It was choice. It was freedom. Rowan took a deep breath. You can leave, he said. You do not have to fight. We are not your enemies. You do not have to hurt anyone here. Veilrix is not a weapon. And I will not leave him. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Leaves stopped rustling. Birds paused mid-flight. Even the fading sun seemed to hesitate. Veilrix slowly lowered his head, keeping it near Rowan. He did not attack. He did not roar. He simply waited, calm and immense, showing the soldiers that courage and kindness could be stronger than fear. The soldiers stepped back slowly. One of them lowered a weapon. Impossible, he muttered. Humans, they should not have this power. They are weak, fragile, small, and yet this child he commands a dragon without force, without fire. How? Veilrix exhaled again, warm smoke drifting through the air. His massive body settled, protecting the child who had stood bravely. He had chosen restraint over instinct. He had chosen to protect instead of destroy. And in that moment the galaxy learned something it had never seen before. Strength is not only in fire or size or weapons. True strength can be quiet, patient and kind. The soldiers finally withdrew, confused but unwilling to fight. They returned to their ships, leaving the forest in peace. Rowan breathed deeply, relief washing through him. Veilrix lowered himself fully to the ground, his head resting near Rowan's feet. The dragon had survived not by fire, but by refusing to use it. Rowan reached out, touching the warm scales of Veilrix's nose. You did it, he whispered. You didn't burn them. You protected me. Veilrix rumbled softly in response, almost like a purr. The dragon who had been trained for centuries to destroy had learned something new. To choose. To choose life. To choose trust. The night settled over the forest, stars blinking silently above. Rowan climbed into his treehouse, watching Veilrix move among the branches below. He felt a quiet pride. They had faced the galaxy together. They had stood against fear and expectation. And Veilrix, the dragon who could have burned them all, had refused. The forest seemed alive with their victory. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves. Fireflies began to glow among the trees. Rowan smiled, exhausted but happy. For the first time he felt that together he and Veilrix could face anything. Veilrix exhaled slowly, a warm breath brushing against Rowan's hand. He had been broken, abandoned, and feared for centuries. But here, in a fragile human treehouse, he had learned something more important than destruction. He had learned choice. He had learned trust. He had learned warmth. And the galaxy, watching silently from afar, had begun to understand something it had never known. Humans were not weak. Humans could inspire courage in the greatest of beings. Humans could change dragons. Humans could change the universe. Rowan leaned back against the treehouse wall, looking up at the stars. Veilrix lay beneath him, immense and golden-eyed, breathing slowly. Together they had survived. Together they had refused fear. And together they would face whatever the galaxy sent next, side by side. The forest was calm in the morning light. Birds sang softly, and the leaves shimmered with dew. Rowan Hale stood at the edge of his treehouse, looking at Veilrix, who stretched his enormous wings slowly. The dragon's wounds had healed more than Rowan expected, and the golden eyes now held a quiet strength, mixed with a gentle warmth. It had been weeks since the galaxy soldiers had arrived. They never came back. Their ships hovered at the edges of the system for a while, scanning, calculating, but Rowan and Veilrix were never found. Somehow, the treehouse in the forest, fragile and wooden, remained invisible to all but them. It was their secret world, a place that should not exist. Rowan stepped down from the treehouse, carrying food for Veilrix. "You've been patient," he said softly. "You trusted me even when it was scary. I think the galaxy is starting to learn something too." Veilrix lowered his massive head and nuzzled the boy gently. His warm breath ruffled Rowan's hair. It was a simple gesture, but it carried 1,000 unspoken words: trust, friendship, and hope. The human colonies nearby had begun to notice subtle changes. Animals that once avoided forests returned. Small plants grew in strange places. And in the distant stars, those who had watched the soldiers retreat whispered stories of the child and the dragon who refused to fight. No one fully understood it, but humans had shown courage the galaxy had never expected. And the dragon had shown restraint no one thought possible. Rowan spent his days exploring the forest, gathering supplies, and helping Veilrix move more comfortably. He built simple platforms for the dragon to rest his enormous body, even constructing a small bridge between the treehouse and the lower branches. Veilrix moved carefully along it, testing his strength and agility. The two of them communicated without words sometimes, through gestures, looks, and the subtle movements of Veilrix's tail or wings. Rowan had learned to understand the dragon's moods, and Veilrix had learned to read the boy's courage. One evening, a human scout from a distant colony appeared near the edge of the forest. Rowan had not expected visitors. The scout froze, staring at the dragon. Veilrix rose slowly, wings outstretched, but not in attack. Rowan stepped forward, calm but firm. "He will not hurt you," he said. "We are not enemies. We are friends." The scout hesitated, then lowered his scanner. "I've never seen anything like this," he said quietly. "A dragon and a human, together. And the dragon does not attack." Rowan nodded. "He does not need to. He chooses not to. That is more important than any weapon." Word of Rowan and Veilrix spread quietly among human colonies. Soon humans began to travel to the forest, not as soldiers, not as conquerors, but as learners. They wanted to see how the dragon and the boy lived together. They wanted to understand the bond that had formed. And slowly the galaxy began to change. The idea of dragons as weapons began to fade. The idea of humans as weak or fragile began to fade too. Veilrix became more than a dragon. He became a symbol. Not of fear but of trust. Not of destruction but of choice. And Rowan grew up in the forest, still small but strong in ways the galaxy could not measure. He learned that courage was not about firepower, but about standing firm when no one believed in you. Years passed. Rowan continued to live in the treehouse, building and repairing it with care. Veilrix stayed by his side, growing stronger and wiser. The bond between them deepened. They explored new parts of the forest together, discovering hidden streams, strange plants, and quiet places no one else had seen. Humans and dragons across the galaxy began to take notice. Reports came from distant colonies of dragons that refused to fight, dragons that responded to trust instead of fear. Slowly, the galaxy's armies realized that humans had not only survived but changed the rules of war and power. They realized that strength could be quiet, subtle, and kind. That courage could come from the smallest beings. One night, under a sky full of stars, Rowan and Veilrix sat together on the highest branch of the treehouse. The boy looked at the horizon. "Do you think the galaxy will ever understand us?" he asked softly. Veilrix tilted his head, smoke curling from his nostrils. He lowered his massive head beside Rowan's, letting his warmth surround him. In his golden eye there was a glint of hope. The galaxy did not fully understand yet, but it was learning. Stories of the child and the dragon were told quietly in human colonies, and even among alien worlds. They were stories of courage, trust, and warmth. Stories that reminded everyone that even the smallest being could change everything. Rowan smiled and whispered, "We did it, Veilrix. We changed it all, didn't we?" The dragon rumbled softly, answering without words. Yes, they had. Together they had shown that power did not always come from fear. That courage could be quiet. That love and kindness could shape two worlds. In the forest, the treehouse stood tall, fragile yet strong. And beneath it, a dragon who had fallen from the sky slept peacefully, knowing he had finally found a home. And a human boy, small but fearless, had found a friend who could protect him for life. The galaxy, watching from afar, began to rewrite its history. Not all dragons were weapons. Not all humans were weak. Some humans could inspire dragons. Some dragons could choose peace. And in this quiet forest, two worlds had been changed forever. Not by war, not by fire, but by courage, trust, and warmth. Rowan leaned against Veilrix's massive scales and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was taking note. But Rowan did not worry about it. He had his dragon, his forest, his treehouse. And together they had changed more than the galaxy ever imagined. Veilrix exhaled slowly, warm and calm, a long, steady breath that carried the weight of centuries. The dragon had learned something the galaxy could never teach, that life was more powerful than fear and kindness was stronger than fire. And in that quiet forest, under the endless stars, a human and a dragon slept peacefully. They had faced the galaxy, refused fear, and built a bond that would last forever. Two worlds had changed. And the universe would never forget the courage of a small boy and the heart of a broken dragon who refused to burn.